All right, everybody. Good news is this car is about to go out, and that means I am sold out for the weekend. Bad news is, I sort of need that money because my wallet sort of took a Hertz on Hertz Stock. And I don't know if I did mention in one of my videos, I went in on Hertz. I figured big company, been around for over 100 years. And it's sort of like, it was doing all right, made some money on it. And then right at 5:15 the other day, when they announced their bankruptcy filing, Hindenburg, like the visual of the flaming blimp crashing to the ground is essentially what happened. And the stock dropped like 45% straight away. That's reactionary to bankruptcy. I knew bankruptcy was going to be like an option. Everyone's like, get out now, get out while you can. And I'm like, look, I didn't put enough money into it for it to change my life. If I made 20 times my return, it would be nice. I'd go out and do something with that. But if I lost it, it's essentially like going to Vegas and gambling for a day, and whatever happens, happens. So I still have my shares, and I am going to ride this ship to the bottom of the ocean, flaming, holding onto the mast like a Viking going to Valhalla. I am in for the long run. It's going to be worth zero, or it's going to be worth something. Those are my only two options. I don't know when I'm going to sell it, but if it goes up something significantly and sort of flattens out for a while, I'll offload it. Or if it goes down to zero and it's worth nothing, then it's worth nothing. So that's my investment strategy for Hertz. Now, there's a greater impact to Hertz right now, which is that it's going to flood. Like, here's all the stuff. Now, you have to understand why Hertz didn't have any lifelines in the end, right? The answer is because the travel market, they're heavily dependent on the travel market, and the opening of the travel market is very uncertain. So they've got all these fleets. They've already canceled the orders. They laid off some of the staff. They furloughed some people. They've mitigated as much as they could. But if there's just no demand globally for all these cars, they're in deep crap. So a lender, especially with something short-term, lenders and creditors are more likely to be like, you know what, we got you. We see that this is temporary. If there's really no end in sight, they got to sort of cut their losses now. And that's essentially what's happening. That's why they filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. And this is where I'm not like overly concerned, because half of me says like they're going to file for bankruptcy, they can come out of bankruptcy and issue new shares, and then my shares will be worthless. But it's Hertz Global Holdings, and they've only filed for bankruptcy in North America, so Canada and the United States. And they've got like 560,000 cars in that fleet. They didn't do it in Australia, Europe, any of the other countries where they have interests. They're all fine, or they're at least, whether they're fine or not, they're all not part of the Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So maybe the stock will take a beating and everybody will bail out of it. Maybe I'll average down. And if it goes to, the market still hasn't opened since this. A lot of companies will strategically announce something like going into a holiday weekend so it doesn't just bloodbath, trigger all sorts of stop sale orders on whatever. So it's common for a company to release news like that after hours, so people have time to digest it. And then they show up a couple days later like, okay, yeah, that was last week. It's less reactionary, but let's see what happens. As I said, I'm going to ride that wave straight in the shore, and either going to be pretty righteous in the end of it, or I'm going to look like an idiot who wasted a couple of bucks. Now, that's a home run ball. Like, half the time you're going to strike out, but once in a while, you may turn out good. The fact that Carl Icahn put more money into the company, and I feel like as such a heavy investor in Hertz, he knows something. I don't think these shares are ultimately ever going to be worth zero. I don't think he would have done that and taken an additional stake in the company a week prior if the shares were ultimately going to, if he knew like bankruptcy was definitely in the picture. Everybody knew that was a strong possibility, but I don't think he would have dumped more money into it just to watch that all just get flushed down the toilet. So I'm confident. I think it's going to work. A lot of people sent me over the links, and like after my Hertz video the other day, everyone's like, check it out, Hertz is selling all these Z06s. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's, if they're going to start offloading the fleet, you start with the the units that are going to get you the most money. And the Z06s are probably the highest per dollar vehicle. And none of them were really great deals. They're all like $50,000 to $65,000, which is not honestly a terrific deal for a yellow Hertz rental car Corvette coupe or Targa, whatever it is. So, I mean, it was the beginning of them liquidating. When a company comes out of bankruptcy, it could be even stronger than it was going into bankruptcy. The fact that they can now weather the storm, they can renegotiate with creditors, they can walk away from debt, they can, excuse me, they can lose employees without, like, I don't know if they're union or not, but they can lose employees, they can reduce the workforce. They become a lot leaner and a lot more efficient. And Hertz, they've been around for so long, they were not so adaptable. Now, I mean, they've got a great name. Like, Hertz is like, oh yeah, if I can afford it, I'll take the car from Hertz. Like, if you see 5 cars on a car rental selector and Hertz is the same price as the other ones, that's the company you go to. It's like you'll go to Hertz. Now, it's bigger than just Hertz because Hertz owns like Firefly, Budget, I think Dollar Thrifty. There's a bunch of other brands underneath Hertz that would all sort of fall into this. They own Hertz Auto Sales because they would sell their own cars to get rid of the middlemen. But there's a significant impact now if they start unloading all these cars. Now, I don't think they can just get rid of all of them. Like, I don't think that's the goal. But they may get rid of a bunch of them. They may zero reserve auction 100,000, 200,000 cars. But there's already a lot of cars on the used car market right now. So they're going to overwhelm the used car market a little bit. This impact of this whole Hertz bankruptcy is pretty significant. And it's probably, like, the airlines would have all had to file for bankruptcy as well. Like, American is tentatively filing for bankruptcy, or at least the rumors are. But the airlines will all have to file for bankruptcy because they're also, no company is designed to have zero revenue or like virtually no revenue. There's so much overhead in the car business of all, I mean, I don't have anything here now, but of all the cars, you're still paying for those cars. You bought the cars. And then when business goes to crap and the economy collapses, the cars are worth significantly less. So you either have to sell out of the cars for, and even on your book, so there's something called depreciation. Depreciation is what a car's value is over time. And depreciation, well, there's always a curve. Most cars don't go up in value, they go down in value. Standard accounting will allow like a 5 or 6 year to zero depreciation. So assuming a company bought a car for $100,000, they'll allow you to depreciate that $20,000 a year down to zero, assuming it's effectively worth zero at the end of 5 years of use. Now, the cars will never really be worth zero, so you'll get something where you'll be able to sell it and you'll have a gain on the sale of the asset. So it's allowed to be depreciated to zero, but they say you sell it for 20 grand. A $100,000 car sold for 20 grand at the end of 5 years with 60, 70,000 miles on it. You'll have to then reclaim that money. You've depreciated it, now it would come back in essentially as income. It's a gain or loss on the sale of vehicle. You can also have a loss if you depreciate it, say, now this is what the problem is. Say they buy a $100,000 car, they depreciate it to 80, but it's really worth like 65 now because nobody's buying them. That's where you end up underwater on the cars, and you always want to be sort of floating that line. The more equity you have in the cars that you don't need, especially when borrowing for like a large corporation like Hertz is probably significantly cheaper than most other companies. You don't want to borrow and put too much money into the fleet because it doesn't get you anywhere. You want to have that, you don't want to be underwater on cars, but you don't want to be like, oh cool, I own everything in cash. I mean, that's ideal, but cash is usually better used for expansion or other operations and not just sitting in vehicles that they're depreciating. That's just one of those things. So Hertz bankruptcy, it's a sign of this. It's one of the things from the pandemic that I think it's probably inevitable. The normal question would be like, why aren't the other companies going bankrupt? Well, they've got different structures. They may have been a little healthier financially. They may be a little smaller than Hertz, so they can absorb it a little bit easier. But now companies like Avis, who tries harder for you, that was their tagline. And it's like, we try harder, and that's like a direct dig at Hertz. Like, they just do what they do. And Hertz, admittedly, Hertz probably hasn't really changed. Like, you go and they print out, like, I don't get rental car companies that print out the contract on the perforated paper printer. it's 2020. I mean, like, I can't wait. We're launching 20,000 satellites up in the sky to have global internet, and we're still printing out rental contracts on paper like that. Astonishing to me. But they didn't really adapt. Companies like Avis came in and said, we're going to try harder. We want to win your business. And it sort of took away some market share for Hertz. Hertz was still huge, but the fact that these other companies are more likely to adapt, maybe they cut losses earlier, they did changes earlier. Maybe there's also in financial ruins, like a lot of companies are right now, but they were better positioned to handle it. Maybe they had less debt, so they were able to borrow to secure against it. But Hertz did take a kick in the nuts. And I was all right. I was feeling pretty good while buying in at $2.80 a share. Now it lost $1. It's $1.80 a share. Again, I don't have to sell my shirt, but it is a wave I'm going to ride all the way to shore. I'm going to see what happens. Remember, investing, I don't want anything that I ever say. I'm going to make this disclaimer anytime I talk about stocks. Anything I ever say is pure speculation. I am the idiot investor who just says, like, that's shiny, and then I invest in it. So, like, don't follow my lead. I've had some really good ones that have worked out really well recently, but also stuff like this, it's a home run ball. There is a risk. There is a huge risk and a gamble, and hopefully long-term it pays off, and I look like a hero here. But if it doesn't, then I'm out a couple of bucks. So, thanks for watching. That's the impact Hertz's bankruptcy is having on the overall car community. When I say car community, car industry. And it's pretty bleak because it sort of hurts the manufacturers that aren't selling all these cars to Hertz. So their numbers are going to be significantly down. It's going to hurt the used car market because now there's more cars on the market. And then it's going to hurt all the banks and everybody that's lent to them that now have to eat crow. And then all these people are going to be out of work as they restructure. But I think it's going to come back. I think Hertz is going to be around. There is brand value there that somebody's either going to buy them while it's distressed, buy them out of bankruptcy. Something will happen. I think Hertz is not going to go away, and I'm sort of banking on that. So, thanks for watching. Rob Ferretti. See you tomorrow. So you guys are familiar with my other company, Adventure Drives, right? Well, this year we've got 2 trips coming up. One, which is starting in Seattle and ending in Jackson Hole in July. That's going up through the Canadian Rockies, coming down through Banff, Yellowstone, Glacier National Park, and Grand Teton National Park. It's going to be phenomenal. Also, we're going to be going to Scotland in October. We're going to be doing Scotch distilleries, playing golf at St. Andrews if you want to do that, walking around, seeing lakes, waterfalls, driving the North Coast. It's going to be an amazing trip. Prices start as low as $2,500 per person for the shorter trip in Scotland, about double that for the longer trip in July. If you're interested in going, check out the link in the description.